Little Android AA.72 stands for Amusement Android 72. So unlike the other MK series, this new Android is specialized for entertainment and games, and therefore she's the newest summer unit that is coming to Garden Tales in the upcoming patch itself. So in today's video, we're gonna run through whether or not she's just an amusement android or is she combat ready for the various game modes in Garden Tales. And without further ado, let us see how worthy is AA.72 potentially. The new AA Android series was designed to feel a sense of accomplishment after performing their specific roles or duties. This was done to prevent the androids from not wanting to work, and in AA.72's case, she's loaded with a firework feature to decorate the summer vacation finale to entertain the user. And AA.72 has a lot more to be discovered within the short story When You Wish Upon a Star, but I'm just gonna do a short summary for it. Basically, she encountered swimsuit Yuze in the beach or on the beach itself, and she managed to forge new memories for herself together with our hero, as well as getting herself a new name that is known as Stella. So play the short story to know more about her backstory, and I'm not gonna spoil any more of it. AA.72 stats ranking based on level 86 heroes are 4th in terms of attack, 29th in terms of HP, and 23rd in terms of defense. She also has a crit chance plus 4%, so this makes her a pretty decent damage dealer with, I would say, above average tankiness for a ranged attacker, so she's pretty good at that. And her party buff is crit chance plus 40%, so it's a universal party buff that can slot into many teams, and she has a 10% shield increase on battle start. AA.72's normal attack water park has two parts to it. So number one, it's a water gun ability. It's a very straightforward normal attack that has a pretty long attack range that is able to attack through walls but not terrains. As for her secondary ability, water rocket, this water rocket skill acts like a normal skill itself with a 3 or 4 seconds recharge time, and you can store the skill in the secondary attack button up to 3 charges, so you can release it immediately, or you can hold your charges and then use it at the correct timing according to when you need it or how you want to play out the match itself. Now, her chain skill Midnight Summer allows her to launch fireworks at the enemy to do 300% DPS damage while increasing your whole party's water type attack by 30% for 5 seconds. So on paper, I think increasing the water type attack on your team is really good for the water team, but in actual fact, it's not as good as compared to the other buffs that units such as Lucy as well as Veronica can provide. So I'll explain it later in the analysis portion, so stay tuned for that. Next up, I think her special ability is very similar to Mark 99 in a sense. Like, the amount of boost that it gets is pretty similar there, and there's a lot of similarities with a lot of like OP heroes as well. I'm not gonna name all of them, but her dual palm ability basically increases her attack and defense. Right, on the normal water gun attack, it increases defense by 15% for 5 seconds up to 2 times, and for the next part, right, when the water rocket hits, it increases her attack by 15% for 10 seconds, and the effect can overlap up to 2 times as well. So her exclusive weapon provides her with a movement speed boost by 20% when she hits her normal attack. So her normal attack boosts her movement speed and defense, while the water rocket attack boosts her attack itself. And on top of that, the last enemy hit by the water gun will have the water rocket priority. So her EX weapon, right, is really important, because this EX weapon allows her water rocket to deal DPS as well as get the targeting mark on the enemies itself. Now, her EX weapon skill, Water Bomb Festival, allows her to install a water balloon cannon right where she's standing, and then the cannon will start bombarding the enemy to inflict damage to them. So this skill deals 225% DPS with a relatively low cooldown time of 6 seconds. And personally, I think this weapon skill is very easily dodgeable, and it doesn't really chain that easily unless your opponent stands in the weapon skill to let you chain them. And you'll probably need 7 to 8 ticks to fully crowd control your enemy, depending on who you face within the arena game mode itself. Now next up for the Colosseum side, I think AA.72 is not a bad Colosseum unit, but she's probably not going to be recommended too much because first of all, her weapon skill is a fixed position cannon, so if the AI places it at the wrong location, you're not going to hit too much enemies, and it doesn't really chain easily, and combined with the fact that it's random targeting mechanics, it could hit like many different enemies in one skill and you don't really chain that easily. So if you compare it with the likes of Kamel, with Lina, with FP, or heck even like some of the old school like units such as Pure Vice, she's not going to be as good because she doesn't chain easily as a leader. And secondly, her skill doesn't really provide much utility for the team except for the water attack boost at her chain skill. So yeah, like I mentioned earlier, her water attack boost is not as good, especially in the Colosseum setting, because if you don't get your chain off, you don't get the water attack boost, and mono water now in the Colosseum isn't really the strongest element, right? There's a lot of other strong teams out there, so I don't recommend you to build her right now because her kit is pretty selfish as well. She buff herself, she doesn't benefit the whole team except for her chain skill buff. Now moving towards Arena, I think it's a little bit hard to gauge AA.72's ability. So the reason why I'm saying this is, number one, I personally think she's a top tier unit because her kit is very mobile, right? She's able to buff herself, she's able to move around, come in and out, shoot your enemies, and then use the water rocket ability to snap them down. But at the same time, I think her weapon skill is really hard to actually hit if your opponent really knows what they're doing. Like, they can just run out of it easily and they never get chained. So in a lot of matches, I think I don't really chain that easily once my opponent knows how to play, and that's one thing that is not that good about her. And in terms of playstyle, I think she's very similar to Lucy, but she's more like normal attack based compared to Lucy, who is more weapon skill based in most matchups. So that's my opinion about her. So you can pair her up in your normal range crit comp or even your defensive crit comp, which I think will be the better choice for her because she has a pretty decent tankiness and a decent normal attack damage output that you can just slot her in a tanky team and then, you know, force your opponent to come to you as she's now tankier and she can shoot you from a further range. Now moving towards the PvE discussions, I think AA.72, I'll classify her as a low S tier unit. Like, I think she's a pretty strong standalone unit, but she's not amazing for PvE as a whole because first of all, her kit might seem to fit really well in water teams with that water attack buff, but that's pretty much it. And the thing is, you need to wait until you get your chain skill before you get a buff, so the buff potential is not as consistent as compared to Lucy nor Veronica's buff itself. So you don't really see a lot of higher level people using her in the really super stack water raid teams, right? With Garum, with Orca, with Kamel or Nari, and +1 Veronica. And other than that, I think her normal attack and weapon skill is very single target focused, so she might not be as good in like certain game modes such as a defensive co-op or even Cabazon, where you need to deal with multiple enemies as quickly as possible. And lastly, like I mentioned earlier, she doesn't really offer much in her utility for the whole team. Like, she's no debuff to her, right? There isn't really like a team like a buff in her normal or her secondary ability, and the buff for the water attack only comes in the chain skill. So yeah, she's a very good standalone unit, so she's an S tier, but she's not really highly recommended. That's why she's a low S tier for me. Below are some reasons to pull or invest in AA.72. So how worthy is Little Android AA.72 potentially? Personally, I think she's not a must pull unit if you're seeking for general versatility, but she's a pretty solid arena choice with her mobile and self buff kit. Her weapon skill is a bit too unreliable. Like, generally, I think her overall stats as well as her kit is pretty strong, but the weapon skill is such an unreliable weapon skill, and it's so dependent on the situation as well as the map as well as your opponent that it's not as attractive or easy to use as compared to the other OP skills such as, you know, your arena skill, you know, your very straightforward mirror weapon skill plus. So this means that there will be a higher skill cap requirement and she'll be a little bit harder to play. So I won't really recommend newer players to play her, but she's not super hard as well. So her weapon skill is the only part that requires a bit of like understanding as well as, you know, positioning to make it look good. but overall she's a decent unit to run in the arena itself. Nonetheless, if you like swimsuit lolly type units, then AA.72 is definitely something for you, but do take note that I'll call the FBI if you start simping on her. And that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Do comment in the comment section down below if you'll pull for her when she releases in the global server of Garden Tales. Do remember to like and subscribe to see more content from this channel, and I'll see you guys again in my next video. Bye guys!